Okay, so redesigning Coverflow, enhancing the user experience. So this is our library, Bedford Public Library. We are located in Bedford, Texas, which is in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which is North Central Texas. We're located right next to Michael's Library in North Richland Hills. We're a single site facility. We have just under 50,000 population. We have a collection of about 112,000 items, about 34,000 patrons, and our annual circulation is around 400,000. So here's a picture of our former OPAC display. Okay. And it's not bad. We were using a third-party widget, and we were ready for a change. We wanted to move away from the sort of the carousel style of display. And we'd been using this same display since 2016. So it was ready for, to do something different. So the issues we had, it was a third-party widget. It was a little dated looking, not bad, but just a little dated. We were only focusing on a limited number of collections in that display. It had automated scrolling, and for some people it was too fast, and for other people it was too slow. It would take a long time for the entire carousel to run through, and that also frustrated people. It required manual updates by me, and so that took some time, and I would also get involved in other things and sort of forget to keep it as current as it needed to be. At times it was a little buggy, and so I'd have to kind of work around those things. There would be times where the vendor would have an issue, and so then I'd walk by an OPAC in my public library and there'd be a big blank screen because it wasn't working, and so didn't like that. It was supposed to be responsive, but I had some issues with that, so I didn't think it was looking really great on all the different sizes of media that we all use. And it was low cost, but it wasn't free. So this is what a typical Coverflow looks like. You can, design it different ways. This one, I'm not sure if this is using the Coverflow or the carousel, but there's a setting for how it looks. And so this wasn't really exactly where we wanted to go. We weren't really a fan of the large cover in the center with the angled covers on the sides. We didn't really like the titles underneath and the shadows that the titles had. And there are different things you can do with it. But when we looked at Coverflow, it was just like that's not really where we want to go exactly. And we were looking for a way to display more titles all at once. Okay. So after we thought about things, we realized that we were really kind of wanting a gallery type display. We wanted to be very contemporary looking. We wanted to highlight new titles from specific collections in our library. Whatever we did, we were hoping it would increase patron discovery and increase circulation. I wanted it to be easy to maintain, and I wanted it to be efficient, so to be able to use the ability of running it off the reports in Koha so that I wasn't doing something third party on the outside. I wanted it to be totally responsive, and you know, why not have it be no additional cost? So here's what we came up with. This is just a snippet of one of the galleries that we have in there. This is our home and garden collection. It uses 3 main tabs across the top. So we've got one for new adult books, new teen books, and new kids books. And then each of those main tabs is broken down into the sub collections of the area. So we've got all kinds of different collections in adult that we specifically want to make sure that our users see all the new books we're having in our system. And then this is just a picture of one of the picture book galleries with all the pretty little picture book covers. The gallery, I didn't put the whole screenshot on here because it would be too small, but on a desktop computer in our OPACs in the library, the gallery displays 6 covers across and 4 down. So a total of 24 covers is visible to the patron on the screen. And if you're using an iPad in landscape view, it's going to switch to 4 covers across with 6 rows. And if you use your iPad in portrait, it's going to be 3 across and 8 down. And phone is 2 across and 12 down. So it's still the same number of covers, but it's adjusting depending on what kind of device you're deciding to use. So in order to do this, there were several areas in Koha that I had to deal with. So I'm going to go through each of them. So reports, we have to deal with the Coverflow plugin itself, do some HTML in the OpacMainUserBlock, and then style it with CSS. And then there's a little bit of JS in there to add some functionality. So under reports, you have to create 1 or more public reports. It's only required to have the biblio number, the ISBN, and the title. But there's some extra fields we decided to add in so that we could target these specific collections, and I'll go into that in just a second. You need to decide on the number of covers that you want to display. And then sorting. At first, when we did this, we decided to sort it by date accessioned so that the newest items would display first. But we later changed it to random so that when the page is refreshed, you'll get a new set of covers. And I'm not sure we've completely decided which one's better, but we've tried both. And for each of the galleries, you need a separate report for each one that you want to show. So this was the basic Coverflow report we started from. I'm a big fan of finding something that works and, you know, using it just like that if that's what works, or using it as a basis for making it into something new. And so this is where we started, and it's bringing in the biblio number, the ISBN, the title, and the date accessioned from the items. And then you'll see there later on it has limit 24, so that's where it's bringing in that it's going to only include 24 at a time. That group by biblio number part, I found out that helped me prevent duplicates. So if I had 10 James Pattersons, it wasn't showing 10 James Pattersons in the display. It would just show the one. And then that bottom portion is sorting it. So right now we're doing it by random, but you can do it by date accessioned. So these were the additional fields that we put in the where statement in the SQL. So each of ours, we're basing it on a location. So I used permanent location. Originally, I used just the location, and that FN is our location of fiction new. Originally, I just used the regular location, but we used the, I guess it's the cart to shelf feature. And so I was not capturing the items that we call it recently returned, is what the language is in the catalog. Those would fall out of the Coverflow because they had a temporary location for a while. So we're using permanent location. So I have reports for, you know, this one's fiction new. I have another one that's fiction mystery, or yeah, fiction new mystery. So we've got a report for each one of these. The status, we didn't want to have it include things that were in processing. So that not for loan, not equal to -2, we'll take those out of the report. The date, I didn't create that. I got that from somewhere. I put it, you change the number of days, so it has 30 days in there. Originally, they were all set to 30 days. And then later we discovered that depending on the cataloging workflow during the year and what we're cataloging, sometimes we needed to increase that to make sure we were capturing everything. And we didn't end up with a Coverflow that would only show like 18 covers or something like that. We always want it to have the 24 so that it looks, you know, full and streamlined. And then we are not a fan when an item doesn't have an actual cover. So those will, it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens some. And I found out that there's a way to get rid of that. It's after the fact, and there may be another way to do it, but I found if I actually went in there and put in the where statement to have the biblio number not equal to the specific biblio number of that title, then that's pulled out of the results. And I just pull that out of the, you know, it comes out of the Coverflow because I really don't want that. You know, that looks like something's broken and I don't like that. So this is the final Coverflow report, and it may be a little small to look at there, but I just wanted to have a slide that showed all of it in one place. And where it says, where the where statement starts, the biblio number not equal, like in this example, I've got 2 of them that I pulled out. And later, later those will drop off because the 30 days, you know, those won't be in the group anymore, but it doesn't matter. And then later, if I find another one that's the case, I just go into the report and put in a different biblio number and save it, and then that one will get pulled out. So the next thing we have to do is go into Coverflow, but before we do that, we need to know the report number, because that's important in the setup of the Coverflow plugin. So for this example, our report number was 870. So I'm going to need that when I go into the rest of my setup. So here we're going to talk about the Coverflow plugin. So the first thing you need to do is install the plugin if you don't already have it. And I'm not going to go over how to install it. I've got a few resources at the end that will, there's some great stuff out there to show you how you install it. And so those are at the end. And if you're supported by a vendor, they can install that for you. So the Coverflow that's installed in our system right now is version 2.5.3, and it needs a minimum Koha version of 1905. We're currently on 2011.10 or something like that. So once you've got your Coverflow in there, then you're going to go over to the configure button in order to get into the different settings. That first part, link options, we clicked the box to use the images as the links. We didn't want to include the title because we wanted this to have a really clean look. You can probably do that, and you might have to adjust some of your CSS, but I'm sure that's doable. And then the next part of the configuration is the image options. And we're controlling all of our sizing and margins and all of that through CSS. So I have left that part blank. So then the next part you'll go into with the plugin is the mapping. And the first part is that report number. So number 870, the ID is going to be the report number. So that's what ties your report into your Coverflow mapping in order to make it work. The selector is the name, and I think it can be anything, whatever you'd like to call it. And then we've got options, and the standard Coverflow options are Coverflow, carousel, wheel, or flat. And we had tried all those out and just didn't want any of those. That's what's built into the Coverflow. So I wondered if I used something else, what would happen? So I just put in grid thinking, I wonder if somehow it uses that, but it's not documented or something. And of course it didn't really do anything, but that was sort of the point. It allowed me to sort of kill the inherent behavior of what's in the Coverflow plugin, because I was wanting to sort of break this and move away from the standard display. The typical Coverflow, the spacing is something like -0.5, and that's, I think, what controls the way the covers sort of overlap in that example I had earlier. Well, we didn't really want that, so I set that to 0. And then the autoplay and the loop, we didn't want it to move around. We wanted a static 24 covers on the screen all the time, so I set all of that to false. So now we're going to go into the OpacMainUserBlock. This is where all the HTML is to define what's going to show on the main page in your OPAC. If you're on 2011 or 2205, it'll be under HTML customizations in tools. If you're on an older version, I think you still find it under news, and that's where your OpacMainUserBlock would still be in the news section. But in the newer versions, it's under HTML customizations. And then I go in there and I find my OpacMainUserBlock. So this is the part where you have an idea and you don't exactly know how to get there. And you don't exactly understand everything that's in there, but you somehow just plug away. And in the end, it all worked out. So I don't completely understand all of the settings in here, but what ended up happening was creating the main tabs on the page, creating the sub tabs on the page, and then configuring each of the cover flows. So that's an example of a portion of what I've got in my OPAC main user block. And let me check my notes. Hold on. So that portion, I somehow came up with this, and somehow this is what makes it look good on all the different devices. Again, sometimes it's just trial and error. And I think it goes to show that you maybe don't always have to understand all of this in the beginning. You have a vision and you continue on, and you plug away and you end up with something new in the end. And this is more of what's in the main user block. So this is for the main tabs, the large ones that were at the top, in order to define those sections of new adult books, new teen books. And it shows where all of it's referencing adult in all those different places in that top one. So I've got those highlighted in red so you can see it. And this is for the sub tabs. So these are for like the new fiction, the new mystery, the new picture books, the actual collections. And it's very similar, and it has, it shows in red there where I'm focusing on in that particular one. I needed to show my new fiction. And I think that was just another example of, for the next sub tab that was teen, I'm just doing this for every single one of them to create all of these different main tabs and sub tabs. And then I had to have HTML in there to show each of the different cover flows. And so that's what this is, a portion of, showing the HTML for the new fiction and new mystery. So then we get to the OPAC user CSS. So you may have noticed that our main koha page spans the entire screen, which is not the way everyone's is. Sometimes you use some of them are in like 3 columns, and you have the login box over there on the right. We have never had the big login box over there. So this was the CSS we're using to make it span the entire width of the screen. You could still do this. You could still have the login box on your screen on the right and use some different CSS and make it work to show, maybe just span those 2 columns. And if you remember Lucas's and Jesse's presentation yesterday on their demo or model site, Lucas had some covers that were in a gallery type display, and he had the login box on the right, and he had a smaller sort of gallery display. So they're all ways you could do this. It doesn't have to span the entire screen. So we wanted to set the size and the margins for each cover. I played around with this a lot for, what looks good. What does it look good on all kinds of devices? So this is what we ended up with on the width and the height of the actual covers. And again, also with the margins in between, how much white space looked good, was whatever I was using, was it too much? Was there too much white space? Was there too little and it seemed too crowded? So we just played around with this a lot to, get something that we felt was a nice presentation. So also we wanted to make sure the user could know, which title they were currently on. So we added a blue border so that you can know if you're clicking on a particular cover, that's your currently selected item. And that's the CSS for that blue border. And then for the main tabs and the sub tabs, I've just got a lot of CSS for, for the width, the margin. And again, these were things that I don't inherently know, but I played around with. I do have a test server, so it allowed me to do these settings, see what it looked like, think, well, that looks awful, I don't want that, so I'd go back to the drawing board, try something else, and just keep at it until we got to a display that we were satisfied with. And some more CSS for those main tabs. And more. So I'm not really going to go through this, but just examples of the code that we actually have in place at the time. And I did struggle. I've always struggled with making something look good on all devices. So I'm sitting at my desk and it looks great on my desktop, and then I'd look at it on a phone and I would think, well, people that use it from a phone, this is awful. They can't access everything. They can't see everything. And this worked pretty well across devices, but I did add a little bit of something for larger screens, and this was for the sub tabs. I didn't want them to go the entire width of the screen. I wanted to keep them a little bit more the width of the actual gallery. So that's all this is. And then there's a little bit of OpacMainUserBlock for the navigation. And I struggled with this. I'm a person who, it's like, I want to just keep doing this and figure it out. And I spent some time on this, and this is when you finally decide you need help. And so I got with Bywater, and Lucas wrote some jQuery that would allow us to, what the problem was is I was clicking on one of the tabs, but as I clicked and moved off onto a new tab, it wouldn't really show the corresponding cover flow that it was supposed to. So the navigation wasn't really working. So he came up with this, and that allowed it, to actually get the right display the right contents for the tabs that you're clicking on. So things we'd like to see, the Coverflow uses images from Amazon, or it may use, if you've got the COSI set up, does it use it from there, or is it just Amazon? I'm not sure, but anyway, we use synthetics for the images in our catalog, and we would love it if the Coverflow could work with those vendors. We use synthetics. I know a lot of other people use Baker and Taylor. Those are paid services, but they have images for items that Amazon wouldn't. Like we have Playaway audio titles in our collection. We have Wonder Books in our collection. And typically Amazon is not going to have cover images for those types of things. Also, we've got some local cover images. We have a Library of Things collection. We have STEM kits. We have literacy kits. And so in the catalog, we've taken photos of those and uploaded them to those bib records so that it looks really good in the other part of the catalog. But we can't really create a cover flow for those things because, first off, they don't have ISBNs. And I don't think you can target just the locally uploaded cover images. We'd like to be able to more easily prevent the display of titles that have no cover images, so I don't have to kind of do my little backdoor after the fact, pulling them out of the Coverflow. I had the thought of being able to do a report that would maybe be able to target specific subject headings. So we were thinking of, I think it was more than just the collections we have, but like we wanted to do a specific subject heading, but apparently that would make it use too many resources, I guess. So we kind of put that aside. I don't even know if this would be possible, but with our third-party widget, we could actually go to a URL, and if that page had ISBNs for the, like a New York Times page, and you're looking at all of the covers, and if the code actually had the ISBNs in it, it would be able to then use that URL and pull those covers into the widget. And that's how a lot of our third-party ones were set up. So that would be nice. When working with the Coverflow plugin, every time you make a change and you save it, it goes back to the main Coverflow page. So there was a lot of back and forth. So a save and continue button on the Coverflow setup would be nice. And for our, what we ended up with was 20 Coverflows. So that's a lot of code and the mapping in the Coverflow plugin. And we ended up heightening the box where all of that is with some CSS, but inherently it's pretty short. And so I was doing all this scrolling up and down to find my settings. So a longer, taller Coverflow configuration area would be nice. And maybe that's only, important in the very beginning when you're setting up, because now that it's set up, I don't really have to go back in there. And here were some resources for actually getting that Coverflow plugin installed. Another thing you can do, which we haven't yet, all of ours are based on a location code in the report, but you can do Coverflows from lists. And we haven't gotten there yet. We might create a list of specific awards, or we might create a list of titles that are for a holiday season or something like that. And then we could use that particular Coverflow and put that on our main page if we wanted to. We haven't done that quite yet. So that's it. That's what we ended up with. And it took a lot of back and forth testing, but it was sort of a matter of having a vision in the beginning and wondering how in the world are we going to get there, but just kind of plugging along. And in the end, I think it turned out pretty nice. So any questions?
Hi. Two things. The part where you have topic areas, I kind of got confused a little bit. Are they pulling from your collection codes?
They're actually pulling from my location codes. And
Okay.
I think some libraries use collection codes the way we do, and sometimes they're kind of reversed. So, I mean, you could do it either. If you kind of define very specifically the way your collection is through your collection codes, you can use that. And our specificity for what's in our collection is sort of more by the location code. So that's what we used, but collection code would work fine.
Okay. And then the other thing is, just so other people know, when we encountered the same problem with the covers, some of them not showing up. And my boss and I sat in an office one day and we're like, what do we do? Do we want to eliminate the books that don't have covers, or do we want to do something else? And we were given an opportunity to just create a static image where we just took a really cool picture of one of our rare book covers. They're sort of rando, doesn't have a title on or anything. And we just populate that image as whenever there isn't a cover, that's the cover that gets shown, so
Yeah.
that people will actually be able to see the title and maybe they'll be curious enough to click on it. So that's what we ended up doing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like to make a little advertisement because we at LMS Cloud actually created a similar solution that ticks most of the boxes on your wish list already.
All right.
And you can, for example, you can use Elasticsearch queries to get the titles that you want to display. And it supports two modes. You can have a scrollable list that scrolls sideways and this gallery thing that you showed earlier.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, if you're interested, it's just Google LMS Coverflow, and it's on GitHub. It's open source, so it's also free of charge.
So I have a quick question for you. So you answered one of my questions towards the end, but I was wondering, so you said you were doing something for items that didn't have covers. What were you doing?
So in the SQL, in the where statement, I just go and find what's the actual biblio number for that title. And so I go in there and I think I'm saying biblio number not equal to, and then I plug in the actual biblio number. And so then it's, you know, it's like, oh, you don't want that one. So it just pulls it out.
Okay.
Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah. My report that I do for our cover flows, I just excluded groups of things that I knew were probably not going to have images in whatever set that we were pulling from. So that was my quick and dirty solution. But it would be nice if there was a way to incorporate those built-in images that we upload to Koha.
And I actually, when I started this in the report, I actually added some SQL, which I didn't write, that pulls the cover image into the report because I wanted to see not only just, you know, the list of contents, but I wanted to see, well, what are those images? And so then I started to think, well, maybe there's a way that when I see that, you know, no cover image found, I can exclude that from the report at that time, but I couldn't figure that out. And so if there is a way, that would be great.
Yeah. Let's see here. Oh, so you displayed 24 images. Do you include any kind of link to further the search if people want to go beyond those 24 to search that category or anything?
You basically have to refresh the page. And I have thought about, I think you've got something in your catalog that's like more titles, and I would like to potentially do something like that, but it isn't there now.
Yeah, it's a little tricky because the way you search in a report is a little bit different than how you link to a catalog search. So it makes it a little bit challenging, but yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.